once again. This is my fourth video discussing American politics. This will wrap up my sequence of videos concerning American politics. Thought it would be 2 videos, but it turns out to be 4. First, one quick fact about the Electoral College, which I neglected to mention in the previous video. How many Electoral College votes a state gets? It depends on how many members of Congress they have. They're guaranteed a minimum of 3, because some states have only 1 member of Congress and 2 senators. Every state has 2 senators and representation in the House, so it's a minimum of 3. But it varies from 5 to 10, and you get the point. It depends on how many members of Congress per state, and that's how many Electoral College votes a state gets. Now, I just want to get into details of what I was saying about the politics of money in my previous video, second video I believe it was. Politicians in the United States don't only receive money during a campaign from donors, campaign donations to help fund their campaign, but they're also given money and they're also told what to do while in office. So, if corporations and gigantic companies and so on pay the politicians during the campaign money, so they can get airtime, advertising time, and make signs, etc., so their message gets out the most. That's during the campaign. But while they're in office, while they're already elected, people called lobbyists come to them and ask them to do things for them, saying, can you pass so-and-so, can you help us get this and that done? Political favors from the powerful. Now, I actually don't have, in principle, lobbying is not a problem. You can approach your member of Congress and ask what you'd like, and say, this is for the best interest of this group or that group. And it's okay to ask the congressman for a favor. What's not good is that they give them infinite amount of money and gifts and fundraisers, etc., until, well, congressmen are only elected, and senators as well, are only elected for the money. They only enter politics because they want to get rich. And they only do the bidding of the people that give them the most money, as I said in the previous video. But even while in office, not just while they're campaigning, even while they're in office, they get infinite amount of money for doing favors for these lobbyists, which usually are people asking for favors for rich guys. That's basically it. The difference in other countries is there is rules as to how much you can spend during a political campaign, and you have to be transparent with where you get your campaign donations. That's why America desperately needs campaign finance reform. Excuse me. For example, in my home country, the Netherlands, while it has its shortcomings, politicians are not even allowed to accept gifts from anyone, and are not allowed to attend any fundraisers. And very minimum amount of money, political donations. Very strict rules as to how much money you give a politician. So that's the problem with the United States, as I mentioned in my previous video, but this is just to get into greater detail of how it works. Now, this is the main part of this video that I want to, discuss. The Teabaggers are now beginning to dominate the political agenda in the United States. Remember how I said the two-party system is a cover for a 100-party system? Well, the Republicans are becoming more and more and more into a one-party instead of a disguise for 50 parties. The Teabaggers are increasing are marginalizing moderate Republicans and pushing their extreme right-wing agenda of dismantling the state completely, everything the government provides, and totally removing everything that the government has provided, the state has provided for the people over the years. They are winning elections. They are intimidating moderate and liberal Republicans. So they are essentially hijacking and taking complete control of the Republican Party. They're the extreme right wing of the Republican Party, as I've mentioned, but now they are dominating it. The Democrats remain 50 parties within one party. So the United States is becoming a dominant party system, much like, say, Singapore, where there's only one dominant party and then all the others, and then there's everyone else. The United States is increasingly becoming a dominant party system instead of a two-party system. And one final thing I gotta say here about Ronald Reagan. They keep invoking his name. The Republicans keep invoking his name, saying this is the example of the way things should be. This is the example of the way things should be. They always come back to Ronald Reagan, of how great he was. Ronald Reagan is becoming the capitalist equivalent to Kim Il-sung of North Korea, in the sense that even in death, he is still President of the United States. Because nobody dares to badmouth Ronald Reagan, right? Well, that's a little bit exaggerating. You can still criticize him. But the fact is, he's worshipped even in death, saying, we will continue Ronald Reagan's agenda. The irony, however, is that Ronald Reagan is actually much more moderate than the Republicans of today. Right? But yeah, there you go. What is becoming of the United States? It's really becoming something of a dictatorship. They have their own equivalent of Kim Il-sung, and they are becoming a dominant party system where different ideas are pushed aside in order to take no action to combat climate change, acting unilaterally in the world instead of multilaterally, and dismantling all government services, including, which for the few that the United States actually has, which is Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, as well as probably disbanding several other departments, like the Department of Education or something. So, I want to know, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you, Americans? Thanks for listening.